what is the number one pest for beekeepers? Varroa. All right, let's jump into it here. All right, let's talk about Varroa. Folks, if you're going to make notes or circle some of this in your notebooks, because every one of you, unless you live in Canada, and I don't think we had anybody from Canada come down, you're going to have to deal with this. And I want to help you save hundreds and hundreds of dollars in this next 5 or 10 minutes. All right, so Varroa is all over. Did you all hear about Australia last year? They never had Varroa there, and Varroa showed up. And they just said, okay, it's in this area the size of Toccoa, and we're going to burn all the hives in Toccoa. Well, they thought they eliminated it. Well, then it showed up a little further out. They said, well, we're going to burn all these hives. And by the time they were all done, there was thousands of hives that were burned trying to get Varroa under control. Varroa spreads quickly, and they never got in front of it. Now they've raised the white flag after 2 years of trying to burn hives to get in front of Varroa. We can't escape this, folks. You will hear folks at the state level and at the national level that have 2 or 3 hives and say, my bees are hygienic and thus I don't have a problem with Varroa. Hogwash. You won't hear me say that very often. Hogwash. I have a commercial beekeeper within 30 miles of here. He is deceased now. He would get up on national stages and state like Georgia and South Carolina state conventions and say, these bees I've never had to treat. Until a year later, he lost every yard, over 600 hives. 600 hives, folks, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of heartache. You can't rebound. It will take you years to get back to 600. They never made it back because they refused, even after losing, and the state labs came back and said it's Varroa. It was Varroa. He was too prideful. So he got it going again. It didn't hit him the next year, but the next year it cleaned him out completely again. So I say this is none of us are above Varroa. We have got to be on the offensive when it comes to Varroa. Now let's talk a little bit about this, how it happens, first of all. All right, if we look right here, I'm going to go from left to right here. The queen lays her egg. The egg begins to pupate, and that is the third cell that I'm looking at there. The worker bees are feeding, and on number 4 cell there, you see after the bee, there's a little brown thing crawling down. That is the Varroa. All right, that's a female that's going in to lay her eggs. And those eggs are going to be the host of, the pupa is going to be the host of these eggs. Then it gets sealed up by the worker bees, and that's when they begin to grow as mites. Now, when we get to the third to the last one there, you see that it's almost about ready to come out. What happens is the worker bees can smell Varroa. And what they do is they go in and pull the pupa out and dispose of it. So if you see that bullseye of what a queen has been laying and empty cells, that's another telltale that you might have Varroa problems within the hive. Clear as mud? Oh, I don't like what I'm seeing. Everybody's, okay, do I need to do a rewind? Somebody just say yes if I have to. All right, let's go back. We're going to go to the fourth cell there. And where the female Varroa is coming down, she's going to lay 1 to 4 or 5 eggs for those young mites, and they're going to become hosts to the pupa. And they will stay as a host through the entire life cycle. So if they come out and they break through their cap on their cell and they're out, then they are game. And at that point, the hygienicness of the hive begins to decline. So let's just say on the last cell there, it's coming out. There's still 1 Varroa left behind, but it looks like there's 2 or 3 Varroa that's on this young bee. What they will do is they get into the blood system of the bee, and they pump a virus into the bee. The bee lets that come out as they breathe. All right, so that virus is spreading. How many have kids in school? The human petri dish, right? 1 kid in a class gets it, everybody gets it within 2 weeks. All right, so the same thing happens here, is it begins to spread. Now, let's step back and look at it as in our apiary. We have hive number 1 that has the virus. 2, 3, and 4 do not have it. Has anybody heard of drift? Drift is when bees from one hive go and visit another hive and go in, have their little party, then go back out. Go in, go back out. So the virus-infected hive now begins to visit the other hives. That virus now is spread 4 or more within the hive, within the apiary. So once that virus gets going, you're out of control. There is no going back. You're going to lose your bees. So how do we beat this? We go on the offensive. And going on the offensive here is treating for mites before the load count gets so high that we can't correct it. Now, when is that? That is when we pull our honey off the hives. We have a couple of different I would just say they're not chemicals. They're all natural pesticides that we use, but it's not pesticides that I would feel good about because that's man-made. But these are all natural resources. And what it does is it drops the mite count down. And that's when you got to have a screen bottom board when you do any kind of monitoring of Varroa. And give me a sticky board. Some of them would be Formic Pro. That has a long shelf life on it. The other is oxalic acid, and you can use it in a liquid form or in a vapor. According to Bee Source, the average beekeeper lost 42% of their bees this past season. Those that treated, it went down to in the low 20s, upper teens. So how do we measure this? And JJ, get me the Varroa shake with a gun. We can measure in a couple of different ways. One is with a sticky board inside of our screen bottom board. Now, before we do that, we got to get it cleaned off because this is going to be where we do our mite count. So we put this in, we do whatever Formic Pro or oxalic acid or any oxalic acid and all of the pesticides that we use on our bees are all organic, and it's from rhubarb extracts. So yeah, just right there is fine on the top there. So let's just say we use Formic Pro. We'll put it on there for what it says, 5 days, and we put it in the pattern that they say on the top. And then we come back in 5 days, pull this out, and we want to count how many mites there are. If there's 10 or more mites, then we got to do a treatment, all right? If you only got 1 or 2, I wouldn't worry about it. But those mites are going to be really small. I mean, really small. So you might have to get a magnifying glass just to make sure it's not a piece of wax versus a Varroa on that. So sticky boards, if you don't want to clean it, we sell those as standalone products. Then there is a test that you can get a cup of live bees that are right off the brood chamber, and you want to just put them in there. You put it into this, but you will put rubbing alcohol, about 2.5 inches. And then you'll put your bees in, put your top on, and then you shake it for 1 minute. And it will kill the bees on this method. Then you can take it out, and I believe you have to let it set for another 2 minutes. And then you can do your count in the bottom of this, because that alcohol just takes the Varroa right off the bee. If you have 5 or more, you have to treat on this one here. Now the other one, you fill it up the same way, but not with alcohol. We actually have a gun that anesthetizes the bees when they're in there, and it knocks the Varroa mites out. The only difference is you just leave a little gap so you can stick the gun nozzle in, and you knock out your bees and let them set in there for a couple minutes, and then you do your mite count the same way. This is all put out by, what is their name? Vita Pharma, and they are a French firm that has gotten all the necessary government approvals. Here you go, JJ, put that inside that. And this is the first year that we have used it and have not had any complaints at all on that one. Okay, powdered sugar. Boy, this one, I saw at a state convention, and also Jennifer Cerruto, when she was over at Clemson, they did a big test on this because a lot of people were doing it. What they would do is just throw it over the bees, and the bees would want to clean each other, and that when they were cleaning or being hygienic, they would knock off the Varroa. But there was absolutely nothing there to prove that it worked. And so that was a shocker at the state convention level, because everybody was doing it and everybody was failing.